Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and start the meeting. Welcome to the July Historic Preservation Commission meeting, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Taylor Fudge. I'm the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. As usual, we have a full agenda, and it's my goal to get everybody out of here early. So be thorough, but also be mindful of your time today. As a reminder, please limit individual conversations during this meeting. This ensures that commission members and applicants can hear one another. Please remain quiet until you're called upon. When you do speak, please state your name and address here at the podium for our records. Before the commission votes on each item, we will ask if any members of the public wish to speak. Anybody speaking will be given 3 minutes to relay information to commission members. If we must stop this meeting for any reason and we're unable to continue, all remaining items will be moved to the next regularly scheduled Historic Preservation Commission meeting. That will take place on, looks like Wednesday, August 3rd at 2 p.m. right here in Council's chambers. We do have a little bit of an AC issue, which is why we have the doors open today, but we're going to get everything knocked out. I'm hopeful. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located on the PrimeGov website. If you're following along, you can select Agenda on the right-hand side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see the items being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting are posted online and were shared with commission members. And at this point, I repeat, at this point, no new materials may be shared with the commission. So if you brought something today that's new, please keep that at your seat. We cannot accept that and review it on in today's meeting. Desiree, can you please call roll?
Commissioner Fudge.
Present.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip. Commissioner Corbin. Commissioner Farzana. Commissioner Jordan.
Present.
Commissioner Meacham.
Present.
Commissioner Milner.
Present.
Commissioner Poore.
Present.
Commissioner Ramey.
Okay. Procedures for today's meeting were noted in the agenda. For the sake of time, we ask anyone who is unfamiliar with the process, please refer to that section. There are 2 items we do like to specifically note regarding the meeting process. These items involve certificates of appropriateness and appeals. Regarding certificates of appropriateness, after an application is approved and the 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review, inspection, or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Regarding appeals to the Board of Adjustments, any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Katie, do we have any news from the Historic Preservation Officer? Anything we need to move today?
Nothing we need to move. I do have 2 new items under request for continuance when we get to that point.
Okay. Let's see, have my fellow commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from our June meeting? And do we have any questions or perhaps a motion to accept or modify?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June meeting.
Have a second.
Second motion.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Meacham. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Minutes are accepted. They were passed unanimously. Katie, anything from code enforcement?
Nothing in particular to report that was on your code enforcement report. As always, if anyone has questions about notices of violation or citations that you see reported there, feel free to contact staff or the Action Center.
Okay. Any continuance announcements and requests?
So we have 2 new requests for continuances. These are Hpca 22-00051 and 22-00052. And I need to confirm if we want those to continue to the August 3rd meeting or the August 3rd. Is that good? Okay, so to continue both of those to the August 3rd meeting. And I believe we need a separate motion on each of those.
Okay. Do we have a motion for Hpca 22-00051?
I make a motion to continue Hpca 22-00051 to the, August 3rd meeting.
And I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that continuance was passed unanimously. Do we have a motion for a continuance on HPCA 22-000-00052?
I make a motion to continue HPCA 22-00052 to the August 3rd meeting.
And I'll
Second.
second. I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that continuance was passed unanimously as well. Okay, was there another request, Katie? No. Just those two, okay. Let's see, moving on to the public hearing section, anything under dilapidated structures? I'm showing none.
Nothing under dilapidated structures.
How about National Register nominations?
So we have one National Register nomination this month. This is NRHP 22-1 at 3825 Northwest 19th, Ward 3. Consideration and possible action on application by Matthew Pierce, State Historic Preservation Office, for Patrick Raglow, Trinity Place LP, for certificate of appropriateness, that's for a recommendation to consider a resolution regarding a proposed National Register nomination for St. Anne's Home for the Aged. This is a nomination for a building that was constructed as a retirement home or senior citizens' home, as it says, home for the aged. It is nominated under criterion A for its historic significance, under social history, as an excellent representation of kind of the evolution of housing for seniors in the mid-20th century. It's a really interesting, just architecturally distinctive building in the middle of a neighborhood. It eventually ceased to be senior housing, and they constructed a new facility farther out northwest because changes to the requirements for that type of assisted living facility couldn't be accommodated in the building. But it continues to be, I believe, housing for seniors. It's just not a retirement home community as it was originally. And Matthew Pierce is here from the State Historic Preservation Office and can answer any other questions about the nomination.
Perfect.
This is anticipated to be a historic tax credit project.
Perfect. Mr. Pierce, if you don't mind, state your name and address for the record.
Matthew Pierce, National Register Coordinator for the State Historic Preservation Office.
Excellent. Well, tell us a little bit about this particular nomination.
So as Katie mentioned, St. Anne's Home for the Aged was built in 1950. It was designed by Charles Lester Monnet and was used for senior housing for most of the 20th century. There's two contributing resources. As you can see on the map, the St. Anne's Home itself, the batwing shaped building, and also the maintenance workers house. In around 1990, the main building went through a few alterations that expanded the footprint a little bit. The building pictured here via Eisenbart was also built in the late 1990s as also part of the senior housing. It's non-contributing to the property's significance due to its recent data construction. Part 1 application for the property has been approved by the National Park Service. It is a active tax credit project. Part 2 application is currently under review. The owner has also applied for federal funds for this project as well to rehabilitate it and continue using it for senior housing. So it's also will be subject to Section 106 review by our office as well. So.
Do you have any questions from commissioners on this particular project?
It occurs to me that at least a few of you may not have seen a National Register nomination yet in the time you've been on the commission. I'm not sure, but for anyone on the commission that we haven't seen one in a long time, or anyone in the audience that's just curious, City of Oklahoma City is what's called a certified local government. It's a program through the National Park Service and in partnership with the State Historic Preservation Office, where cities that have a functioning staffed historic preservation program can access funding and other support from the State Historic Preservation Office, and can also take on a larger role in reviewing things like National Register nominations than your typical municipality. So every National Register nomination in the City of Oklahoma City, regardless of whether it's in a historic district, goes through the HP Commission for a recommendation and then goes on to the mayor and city council. and then on to the State Historic Preservation Office. So it's a nice opportunity for us to see when these kinds of things are happening all over the city, not just in our historic districts. Yeah.
This nomination will be, it is slated to be considered, our State Review Committee meets quarterly. And so this nomination is slated to be considered at our State Review Committee meeting in October, and then from there, sent on to the National Park Service for hopefully their final approval.
Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay, so it sounds like we need, Katie, a motion to recommend and adopt the resolution. Okay, do we have a motion on this particular item?
I make a motion. Just a second. I make a motion to adopt, so what is it? To consider adopt and recommend the National Register nomination for the St. Anne's Home for the Aged to the City Council.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
That motion.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that recommendation and nomination was passed unanimously. I do want to note for the record that Commissioner Corbin is here. She's joined us this afternoon. We're happy to have her. This is definitely a good thing. We will need to do another roll call, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think we typically don't do a separate roll call. We just
Oh.
record in the minutes that she arrived
Okay.
at a specific time, and we can check that from the. Oh, okay. Sorry. Hi. Okay.
Okay, let's see. We will move on to the consent docket. Looks like we've got 3 items on the consent docket today. Do we have a motion to approve? Do we need to pull or discuss any of those items?
I motion to approve the HPCA's on the consent docket.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Meacham. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Sir, did you want to be heard on any of the items on the consent docket? Okay. So great news, if you are on the consent docket, congratulations, your project is approved. You have the option to stick around for the remainder of the meeting or head out now if you'd like. We will move on to the cases for individual consideration. Looks like the first 2 we had on the list today have been continued, so we'll start with number 3, HPCA 22-00072 at 120 Northwest 25th Street.
This is located in Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on an application by Danny Warren for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct shed with carport attached, elective. This is a structure that's proposed in the rear yard. Historically, there was a garage. The garage no longer remains. It is not a typical design that we often see in the historic districts, and also utilizes some materials that are not specifically called out as allowed by the guidelines. Staff did recommend continuance, wanting the commission to address any concerns that might come from those materials or from the proposed design.
Perfect. Is the applicant present? Okay. Does not appear the applicant is present. Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? I would vote for a continuance on this particular item if the applicant is not present.
Yeah, I'll motion to continue HPCA 22-00072 to the August 3rd meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. That continuance has passed unanimously. We'll move on to item number 4, HPCA 22-00079.
This is at 615 Northwest 40th Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Dream Construction for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace addition elective, 2, demolish garage elective, 3, construct garage elective, and 4, install new driveway and walkways elective. Staff did recommend approval of all items except for item 4, recommended continuance of that to address the treatment of the paving, brick pavers that are there now. And it was unclear if those would remain or not, the configuration of the driveway and sidewalks, et cetera.
Can you say your name and address for the record, please?
Raj Ahmed, 615 Northwest 40th.
Perfect. So it sounds like staff has recommended approval on several items, wanting more information on the driveway. Can you speak to that, please?
Yes. I think one of the issues was the width of the driveway. I think it was stated in the staff report that it was 11.5 feet, but it's actually 10 feet, which is what was, I think, recommended. So there was a little confusion there. Also, I think the approach, the radius of the approach, which we fixed after we saw the staff report, we would do a radius agreement with the owner to the west. So we'd keep it as is, the approach. And then as long as the bricks, the edging, I guess we would like to remove those. I don't know if they're historic. You can see in the pictures, there's edging throughout the driveway, and then there's brick, like there's a brick like patio, maybe 10 by 10, and then there's brick on that garden area there too. So there's brick throughout. I don't think it's historic, so we would just like to remove it. And then also, I think there was a note about the steps. I don't think we indicated that we're replacing them in like kind on the site plan, so we can indicate that. I don't know if we need to resubmit the site plan, or if you guys can make a note and staff can approve that.
Okay. There was some question as to the appearance and the kind of trying to make the concrete more of an aged appearance.
Yes, that too. I guess we could keep that note that staff recommended of how to make it aged. I think they recommend a topical treatment, so we can do that. So if that needs to be in the site plan or written out somewhere, we're okay with that.
It looks like the other items were recommended for approval. Do we have any questions on the other items from the commission? And is staff comfortable with the changes that need to be made in order to get item number 4 to a position where it can be approved today?
Yeah, I think so. I think we can work through all of that with the applicant to document whatever needs to be documented on the site plan with those changes.
Katie, could you just, is this, I just want to make sure, is this the one where the addition is actually bigger than the recommended, but it's larger because there was a larger addition?
Correct.
Yes.
I think it's actually smaller than the existing addition by a few
Right.
feet.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just like to recommend that when we make a motion for this type of situation where if we were looking at the addition without the removal of an addition, that we would stick closer to the recommended size. So I'm not against this size, but I think that I would like to add to the motion made by myself or others possibly, that the recommended size is, it's a unique circumstance in that the existing addition was larger than the new addition, but still complied with all the other guidelines. other than that.
Any other questions?
Was it clear on the driveway, Katie?
Yes, so I think they're going to fix the angle of the driveway that was shown
Yeah,
by doing a radius agreement with the
yeah.
neighbor so that you can just come straight down and that
Yeah,
radius will cut
we
across
already
the property
fixed it,
line.
But yeah, we could submit to do something.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Do we have a motion?
I'll attempt that one. I motion to approve items 1 through 3 of HPCA 22-0009 with the agreed upon conditions and the unique circumstance that the size of the addition is acceptable in this case due to the size of the existing addition that will be demolished.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Wait, we have item number 4 in there too.
Oh,
Will we need a second motion for that?
You can do it either way. You could include item 4, or you could do that motion for those 3 and then approve item 4 separately. Yeah,
can I just include item 4 with the agreed upon conditions?
yeah.
Perfect.
So I think on that one, we need to state the conditions because, sorry to throw that at you, but because there's not conditions listed in the, I guess kind of convert the additional information that was noted in the staff report to a condition, that those things be
Okay, so with-
addressed and revised to staff.
Sorry, I've got like the spinning wheel on my notes here, but so with the agreed upon conditions that the applicant will work with staff to address concerns with the driveway in item 4.
Maybe can address the driveway as noted in the
Staff report.
in the staff report list of additional information to be provided. If that,
Okay, so separate motion, or are we still tacking on?
I think you can just add that on.
Tacking on,
That's
yes.
Okay,
just, yeah.
with the, sorry, I just have nothing to look at here. So with the
Yeah.
agreed upon conditions that the applicant will work with staff concerning the findings in the staff report?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan,
Whatever it was.
seconded by Commissioner Meacham. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, motion was passed unanimously.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Moving on to item number 5, HPCA 22-00082 at 536 Northwest 41st Street.
This is located in Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Kathy Jo Hinkle for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace windows and doors in rear sunroom, elective. This is an application to replace the windows and doors on a sunroom on the back of the house. We're not sure the age of the sunroom, although there's some renovations that were done in the 70s, so it may be part of that renovation work that's unclear from looking at the Sanborns and County Assessor. The windows and doors that are proposed appear to meet applicable guidelines. Staff recommended continuance because we don't have a floor plan or elevations to indicate where the windows and doors are going, and the proposed doors don't match the size of the opening for the existing door. So something will have to change, and openings are changing, and we just need accurate documentation of what that is.
Okay, is the applicant present? Would you like to come up to the podium? If you don't mind, state your name and address for the record, too, please.
My name is Kathy Hinkle, and my address is 536 Northwest 41st Street.
Perfect. So Kathy, it does sound like staff needs some additional information. They have recommended a continuance to get that additional information.
Yes, and I don't even know what else to say, but I'd be happy to provide that.
Perfect.
So I guess I'll see you August the 3rd. Is that correct?
If a continuance is appropriate or works for you, I think that would probably work. Do we have questions from commission on this particular project?
No question, but she has to turn it in by, it's a quick turnaround.
Oh, by this coming Tuesday,
Yeah.
all the information needs to be provided. And just for clarification in my own thought process, in my own mind, has it been determined whether or not that is part of the original structure or part of the original building, so it will be treated as historic, or is that is there more latitude because that determination hasn't been?
So that may
arrived
be
at?
something that the commission wants to weigh in on, if you feel comfortable treating this as a later addition to the house. I couldn't determine from the information available to me when it was constructed. Just from looking at it, it certainly doesn't look like it's an original feature.
But the roof over it, though, does extend.
That's true. It kind of looks like an enclosed porch
An
to
enclosed
me.
porch.
Yeah.
My question is just what was there before this was started?
Oh golly, there were these,
Were they windows?
they were windows and a door, but they were very poor quality, like they were aluminum. I may not be using the right material to describe those, and they had shifted and
Right.
moved
But do you have
over
any
time.
kind of documentation in regards to those windows, picture?
I have those in what was on Zillow. I did not anticipate that the contractor would just go in and do like demo full bore before I even had windows identified, and so I find myself in a bit of a predicament. So just really what was on Zillow is
That's
the only
fine. I would turn that
documentation.
in.
We do have photos in the
Yes.
in the
Mhm.
attachments.
Of the before? I would just say work with staff and if you can get everything in by Tuesday.
And
Okay.
Is that possible, or do you need an extension
Trying to
on
figure
that?
out, I'm really reeling. Today's Wednesday, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I will absolutely, we'll do our level best to
Okay.
make sure that those are accommodated, and
Okay.
it's worked well so far. So
Okay.
yeah, that'll be great.
Perfect.
Yep, okay.
I would make a motion to continue HPCA 22000082 to the August 3rd meeting.
I'll
Second
second.
that motion.
Moved by
I'm
Commissioner
sorry?
Meacham, seconded by Commissioner
I
Poore.
think it was.
All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, continuance was passed unanimously. We'll see you in a month or so. All right, moving on to item number 6, HPCA 22-00083 at 717 Northwest 39th Street. Is the applicant present?
This is located in Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible application by Bob Ross, Winthorst Trust for certificate of appropriateness to 1, install wood fence on top of existing brick fence wall required.
Do you have to come up to the podium?
So while he's walking up, just quickly, staff did recommend continuance on this. Concerns were just to confirm that the fence did not exceed the height as allowed by the guidelines. And then it appears that the fence posts are on the outside, are facing out, not facing into the yard, and that the posts themselves may be across the property line, just based on the location of the brick fence wall and the fence posts.
Okay. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, Bob Ross, 717 Northwest 39th
Perfect.
Street.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the fence?
Yeah, well, first of all, just here to do whatever the right thing is, and certainly want to do everything appropriate. The fence is on my wall, and I submitted a survey, and so we believe it's it's on my property line or within my property boundary. Didn't realize when we were doing this that poles couldn't be facing out. We had seen other poles facing out, like across the street. So if that's a issue, I'm certainly willing to, box those in or do anything to make it look prettier in your all's view. Poles, we can't put poles on the other side because this is Gorilla Hill, and the slope on Cartel is really steep. You can ask the marathon runners as they're running by. So it's really steep, and my property is elevated in the back, and so the pole, it's a pretty big drop off, and so the poles have got to be on the back. And then the wall is an existing wall, and I know there was concern that it didn't. There was some concern about the vibrancy of that wall. The fence is in solid concrete. The poles are in solid concrete, so I don't think that'd be an issue. My fence contractor said it should last a long time. And the main thing going on here is because of the grade of Cartel in my backyard, I just can't secure the back end of my property. The wall if you could move, I don't know if you can move forward one more. Okay, right there. You can see on this that my neighbor's fence is a 6-foot fence, and my wall is about 3 feet tall. So a child could come up, get on the wall, and drown in my pool. And I've been trying to take care of this and trying to figure out, but my, the shrubs just weren't protecting and they weren't growing fast enough. And this was a real big safety concern of mine because I added that pool, and I can't protect the back of my property. And we've had instances, all well-being, kids in the neighborhood and things like that jumping on that fence and getting over. And I can't assure the safety of my fellow neighbors, so that's why we did it.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners on this particular project? Do we have any citizens? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, so could you, I'm sure in the thing, could you just discuss the height of the sidewalk? I mean, because we've had this issue before with, we have houses that they only have like a 4-foot see-through metal fence around their pool, and it's on a street.
Yeah.
We have had all sorts of kinds of fencing, but generally we follow it is an unusual situation, but what is the height of the fence from the neighbor's side?
Yeah, so that, from the neighbor's side, and that's where I measured it, it's no more than the 8 feet. My neighbor's trash cans and stuff.
Right.
That fence that I was showing you, that's right at 8 feet. The wall is about 3.5 to 4 feet tall, and so the fence is just a 4-foot fence. So, and I did, I've talked to my neighbors, and they were all agreeable to this, and said if they needed to say anything or write to you all. I had one neighbor write in. I don't know if you got that letter yesterday. Real nice letter. So.
I would be willing to look at measuring the height from the neighbor's side. So I don't know. Do we have those measurements, Katie?
I'm looking.
We've got to pick one side or the other to go by, I think. If it's because this is a back fence, correct?
Yeah.
And so then you would be allowed.
It's 8 feet
The back
tall.
of your house.
Yeah.
So
we've measured it, and I do have my architect here who helped me measure it.
So if
Wade Scaramucci.
So I guess my question is the fence, if you measured it from the neighbor's yard, 8 feet or less?
Yeah. When you stand behind it and measure, it's 8 feet. And Wade
it's unusual.
Wade helped me
I
measure.
think that
so.
would be.
I think it's unusual, but the way that slope is, I think
Right.
probably makes it look like it's taller than,
I
it's almost like an optical illusion.
on your side, I'm not really as concerned because you have a slope. I'm in agreement there. I would just say that address the poles on the other side.
Yeah, well, Wade
you've already got a plan
helped me
to do
measure.
that.
If you need a second opinion,
Yeah.
it's no more than 8 feet tall.
Katie?
For me, if he's willing to box it in,
Yeah.
it works for me too.
I'm
Yeah,
agreeing.
I agree.
Happy to do that.
Yeah. Do we have anybody from the neighborhood or any citizens that wish to speak on this particular project? I'm shocked. Do we have a motion on this particular item?
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to approve HPCA 220083 with the condition that the wood portion, all wood portions of the fence are boxed appropriately to conceal the structure on the neighbor sides.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
Just to
Oh,
clarify, it's metal fence posts. So you said.
Right, the metal,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay.
Well, where all wood fences are to conceal the structural element, which would be the metal. Yes.
Okay, all in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that motion was passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 7, HPCA 22-00087 at 808 Northwest 17th Street.
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Brian Wilkerson for Chris Wright for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct rear addition, elective, 2, demolish garage, elective, 3, construct garage, elective, 4, replace asphalt driveway with paver area in backyard, elective, and 5, replace fence, elective, and 6, construct deck, elective. Staff did recommend approval, I believe with some conditions attached for this application. We did want to note that the garage as proposed is larger than the kind of baseline garage size that the guidelines establish for construction of new garages. However, it is smaller than the existing garage proposed to be demolished. So our interpretation of that guideline is that you are presumed to be allowed to build back a garage the same size as what you have, even if that's larger than what the guidelines would allow for a typical new garage. So that's why we did recommend approval of that.
Is the applicant present? Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
I'm here for my son. That's Brian Wilkerson. He's out of town.
Okay. Do you mind stating your name and address too, please?
Donnie Wilkerson, and it's for 808 Northwest 17th.
Perfect, thank you. What questions do we have from commission members on this particular project?
I just have a question regarding the garage. I'm reading some comments from the neighborhood here. Is there a reason, and I think I'm seeking clarity from staff on this, because the application is for a single door, really large single door versus 2 double doors. Is that standard when a garage is operating as a pull-through from the front to the alley?
I think the single door is usually related to it being on the alley because of the radius that they have to make the turn, as opposed to being able to come, up a driveway. You have a shorter area to maneuver in. So that's why we often see people propose the double width, single garage door
But this
at the
is
alley.
proposing one in the front as well, right? Am I reading that it's 2
I believe
doors?
they did propose one in the front, but had contacted staff since receiving the staff report. Am I confusing that with another one? I thought we'd heard from someone that they were willing to consider going back with 2 doors. I think that's a recommended condition,
Yeah,
actually.
I was just curious about that because I know we don't recommend approval for a lot of front-facing single garage doors that are that size.
Mr. Wilkerson, when you spoke with Brian, I was under the impression that you and he were going to discuss the recommendations and the conditions of the staff report last night.
Okay.
And so this single garage door that Commissioner Jordan is speaking about is on the front of the garage, and it's an oversized structure at this time. Did you come to an agreement last evening regarding that?
Okay, to the alley was going to be a single garage door.
And on the front?
Front was a single garage door.
Sir, do you mind speaking into the microphone? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Do what?
Double wide or
On the-
individual car
on
size?
the alleyway, a double wide.
Okay.
On the front to the house was a single garage.
Single wide?
So
Okay.
just one single wide?
Yes.
Okay. That answers my question.
Okay.
Any other questions, concerns from commissioners on this particular project?
I guess I do also. I want to, pay attention to these comments from the neighborhood HP, and they are asking that we review the size because they do think it's out of scale. Anybody else have a thought on that? They're kind of stating that it's larger than anything else on the block and that it will be visible from the street, which is in contrast to what the staff report is stating.
But there's already an existing garage there that same size.
I believe the existing garage is actually a little bigger but shorter. Is that correct?
The existing garage is in fact 20 square feet larger than the proposed garage. This is the front view on your screen where I attempted to get as clear a shot of the garage as I possibly could from the street. At no point was I in a position to get a clear shot. It is visible from the alleyway. I did not walk right up to it, but I believe it's the third one here in this shot.
I think their concern was that not the existing garage is visible, but the additional height. The way I'm interpreting it is
Very
that they're stating that
possibly.
the additional height is the concern. I can't imagine that, they're making a comment on the scale, considering it's actually smaller than what's there. I'm assuming that that's about the height, but it's a very tall structure, so I don't know that that's as relevant.
So has the height of the garage been compared to the height of the other garages on the alley? Is that?
I'm not,
No, it has not. Okay. I mean, if that's in question, I would say that I would want to see the height compared to the other garages to make sure that it's not higher than any other garage on
okay.
the alley.
Or compared to the previous garage that was in existence.
Right. Is it still there? The previous garage is still
I
there.
believe it is noted that it's higher than the existing garage. I just don't think it's been compared to the other garages on that block.
I would say usually, we take that kind of as either an average or next door or whatever, just to make sure that it's not overpowering
Okay.
the neighbor's
Yeah,
garage
I
heights.
don't think it is, but I can have him
Okay,
confirm that.
okay.
Is that something we'd want to see?
I think so.
Okay.
I think that, we would want that to be turned into staff. But I did have another, have we talked about the addition? Or are we just on the garage? I'm not really sure.
We're just
where
on the
at.
garage right
Okay.
now, but we have not
Like
talked
if we
about the
skipped
addition.
over it, or, okay, that's, I'm for that on the height of the garage.
Okay.
So Joe, just to confirm, sounds like a continuance with some,
The garage could, since staff can approve garages, I would say if they provided,
We can't.
oh, you can't? You
No.
can't approve a garage?
I think it's because it's oversized, correct?
So,
Still
well, we
technically.
can't administratively approve construction of a garage. I will note that in their documentation, it notes that the existing garage is 15 feet tall and that the proposed garage is 21 feet tall. It is proposed with an 812 pitch on the roof, so potentially bringing that down to a more typical 412 would get it down to a
Okay.
more typical height. So
It sounds like that we would want to have a continuance where you would have till Tuesday to
Get a
bring that
continuance
in.
on the garage.
Okay.
Okay.
other items we can approve today within this?
So we had recommended approval of the other items, but it sounds like, I think we need to go back and discuss any concerns commission members had with other items as well.
I was just curious about the garage doors personally.
I had questions about the addition. My questions about the addition are, overall, it appears to be it appears to follow the guidelines, except for staff did comment on the design of the, I guess, sliding doors.
He said that they can put French doors in if that's what
Okay,
y'all recommend.
French doors. And my other concern with the drawings is that I would just like to see more detail, because what you turn in and what we approve is going to be what a building inspector compares to the final. And so I am not comfortable that all of the information in regards to the details are, not, it would be impossible for somebody to say, this is that. And so I would just recommend better drawings, and then also you would have to turn in the drawings for the French doors for size and so forth. And I guess what I'm saying is trim around doors and windows. I mean, if you're going to do it exactly like the house,
Yes.
then, I think if you're not going to if you're going to turn in drawings that, are not from a drafting person, which that's fine, we accept other drawings. But, you might provide like a picture of the door or the window, and then you might have that measurement of that exact trim so that if somebody's inspecting it, they're going to look at the trim and they're going to say, they told us it was going to be the very same size as the original size or whatever, because there's actually a lot of pieces there. And so that would be my concern, that we just need a little more information in regards to the details.
Okay.
Sorry, I still have one more question about the garage doors. I just, for staff, was this, because in this proposal, this application, it's still giving the south and the north elevation as having an 18 by 8 foot garage door? So is that something that was, the smaller door on the south elevation, something that was agreed upon with staff?
No, I believe that was discussed, that the applicant came to the meeting ready to agree to that.
So we
but
just
we
need
would
to do with
revised
agreed upon
documentation on that.
conditions?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think we're continuing the garage to allow for them to address the height. Is that accurate? Yeah.
I do have a question, if that's all right. As far as the overhead door at the alleyway, it is proposed at 18 feet. The most typical that we see is 16 feet. Is there any issue with an 18-foot garage?
I don't have an issue with anything in the alley, just,
Thank you.
just I guess, the south-facing facade.
So it sounds like your continuance is likely in order on everything, or is on the entire project? Okay. We need to check in. Are there any citizens that wish to be heard on this, or anybody from the neighborhood that wishes to speak on this particular project? I always like to check on that first. Commissioner Meacham, is something else on your mind?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Jordan, any other questions?
No, I'm good now.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Are we motioning to continue everything?
That's what it sounds like. There are probably some items that could be approved, demolition of the garage, for instance, and paving.
I think that's a question for the applicant typically. When we continue part of your application and approve part of it, it puts your expiration date on two different timelines. So one CA expires at X time and the next CA expires at another time, so your construction timeline gets a little skewed. Would you prefer that everything is continued, or?
Not, if we can help it, no, because they could get over there and start on everything.
So you would
but the
prefer
garage.
at least the demolition and the paving, and did we have an issue with the fence? So it sounds like we could approve items 2, 4, and 5. Well, I think the deck is attached to the addition, so I don't really see a point in approving the deck and giving that a different timeline.
Does demolition need a separate motion?
Yes, I think so. We've got different standard findings for the demolition.
So maybe do a motion on the demolition first.
Go for it.
I make a motion to approve item 2 of, Hpca 22000087.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Who was that?
It was me.
Commissioner Jordan. Moved by Commissioner Meacham, second by Commissioner Jordan. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, the demolition was passed unanimously. Do we have a motion for the other items?
I will motion to approve items 4 and 5 of HPCA 22-00087 with the specific findings and conditions noted in the staff report.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Everybody hit the green button or A button? Uh-oh. Commissioner Milner?
Nothing's popped up.
Hit the- Is he on the live meeting tab? Commissioner Milner, are you on the live meeting tab?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I see that I moved and seconded, and I just don't have anything. You just do a
Okay.
verbal.
Can we do a verbal vote?
Oh, yes.
Commissioner Milner,
Yes, it's my vote to approve.
Okay. That motion was passed unanimously. Do we have a third motion on this particular item?
I will motion to continue items 1, 3, and 6 of HPCA 22-00087 to the August 3rd meeting with the specific findings that more information is needed.
Is he okay with August 3rd? So you'll have to have everything submitted by Tuesday.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The next meeting is August 3rd, which
Okay.
means you have to have your information ready by this coming Tuesday
Okay.
for changes. But if you want us to move you to the September meeting, we can do that instead.
Do it August 3rd.
No, we cannot do that instead. We can do it August 3rd. Okay, so
I'll second that motion.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. Okay. That continuance was passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on to item number 8, HPCA 22-00088 at 2522 North Cartel Avenue.
This is in Paseo, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on an application by Asa Highsmith, Common Works Architects for Micah McGann, M68 LLC for Certificate of Appropriateness 2. I'm not going to read off all 13 items, but it's to essentially rehabilitate the historic church at Northwest 25th and Cartel. Most of the work is repair or replacement in kind. Some of the changes that you'll see are enclosing basement windows. They're currently boarded and most of the windows are no longer there, but they want to brick those openings in. Reconfiguring an entrance at the southeast corner of the building to create an at-grade entrance there instead of the basement entry that's below grade currently. Removal of a kind of service chimney towards the rear southeast corner of the building. I think those are all the main real changes to the structure. Everything else is essentially repair or replacement. The applicant did contact staff after the packet went out to kind of clarify that while they would like to retain as much of the brick as possible, they are anticipating that the condition of the brick is going to make that very difficult, and they do have a good matching brick. I think you have a copy of that revised sheet of their application at your seats. So they anticipate having to use a new brick for much of the brickwork on the structure.
Is the applicant present? Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Asa Highsmith, 435 Northwest 23rd Street, Suite 214.
Perfect.
And, I mean, it's, there's a lot to the item, so I guess I'd be happy to just field any questions that any of the commissioners might have.
Looks like staff has recommended approval on everything but but a continuance on the stained glass windows in the front. Do we have any questions from commissioners on this particular project?
Could you just discuss what you're planning on doing with the stained glass windows?
With the stained glass windows? Well, our plan is to retain all of them that exist. The trouble is, of course, that we don't have really good photographic evidence of the existing, and we feel like specifically for our planned adaptive reuse of the structure, it would be a less than ideal situation to have the stained glass replaced, frankly. The current plan is that these would be living units. As living units, I think we could all imagine that it might be interesting for short term having colored glass, but I think long term we feel like that in someone's unit, if their only windows are stained glass, that it just didn't seem like the best mix. And because the windows are already broken and gone in almost every location, we're going to retain the portions at the top, which are visible even here. So there's 3 pieces at the top, and essentially all of those larger portions on the other facades are broken. So even portions, like small portions of some of these are busted out, and I think you can kind of make that out here. We're going to do our best to see what can be done on those, on the portions that remain, but we are asking that we not be required to replace the portions that are gone. We'd like to come back with a more typical residential window.
What about the portions that are still intact? I mean, I guess I want to understand your ultimate goal. Would the ultimate goal be to replace all stained glass with clear glass?
Ultimately, yeah. It'd be great if you guys would approve us on that. Now, I recognize that, it's a give and take, so on that front portion where the stained glass remains, if it's the will of the commission for us to keep those, we'll do our best. I only intend to kind of paint the picture for you, as you might understand again, the notion of living in a unit where all of your daylight is colored, could be somewhat of a negative. We want to restore the church. It's sat here deteriorating for a very long time. I don't think that, personally, I'm not a developer, so I can't speak necessarily fully intelligently to what would make this project viable by anyone else. But we feel like, it's sat here long enough that another church could have came along and bought it by now. No one has, because, I think most of us know that, for whatever reason, church attendance is dropping and there's fewer.
Right.
So there's not as much demand for church.
We understand that, but we can't really take that into consideration.
That's fine. I'm just painting the picture. So for us, it seemed like a necessity that it be adaptive reuse.
Right.
To save the structure. And so our intent here is simply absolutely to save as much as we can with some amount of reasonable understanding of what the end use is.
I would just ask that you come back with a plan for the windows. Everything else I'm in agreement with staff, but I think that we would be more comfortable if you just had a plan of what you were going to save and a plan, because I'm hearing you say you would replace some with whole new windows, or is that what you said?
Yeah, well, so the plan today, just to verbalize it straight, would be absolutely replace all of the stained glass that is gone with standard clear double glazed windows that fit within the existing openings. So it would still retain the character of the wood frame, but these would be, typical glazing in terms of the glass character.
I hear you saying 2 things. One, if we could, we'd replace all the stained glass with clear glass. That's
Absolutely.
one thing I hear you saying. And the other thing is that you would replace any broken or missing glass with clear glass, and anything that's intact would remain in place.
Those are both non-exclusive. We have existing stained glass, even in the portions that we plan to replace, that we would still keep.
Right.
And that's the top 3 medallions of the window structure. Those absolutely remain, no matter what. The portions below that, the larger portions that are gone, would be replaced with basic.
And mitigation is, I think, there's some reasonable things. Like, what would you do? We wouldn't want you to take original glass and throw it in the trash can. So, maybe you have a plan that we could, mitigate by, maybe you're saving the windows. Maybe they're going to be part of, something else. But I don't think we could approve taking them down and putting them in the dumpster. That would not be a good idea.
There's nothing there to put in the dumpster, is my point. They're
I thought
currently
you just said
empty.
that you wanted to take out.
No. We're wanting to replace where the stained glass has been broken beyond any possible repair. And that's the places where it's boarded and the place that you've seen where they just don't exist anymore.
Let me ask a question for some clarity here. Is there any chance that the stained glass that is already still on the building and is still intact and is still right where it's supposed to be, is there any chance that that's coming down?
I think only one elevation are we asking the potential for that. And that's I believe the very front elevation, right? I think we have a picture.
I struggle with that. I think that the stained glass is actually what makes this historically and architecturally significant. I totally hear you from a from the standpoint of thinking of living in there, but, you know, my counter to that would be, it's in an HP district, and that probably should have been part of the consideration with the overall plan, because it is there. And, you know, we wouldn't, in most other cases, wouldn't say, like, sure, change the glass in your windows, sure, take it all out. You know, to me, it seems like a decent compromise to not have to replace the stained glass where it doesn't exist, but I really struggle with recommending that what is there be taken down.
Sure, and we understood that, and that was part of the discussion. At least my intent in part of the discussion was to say, ideally, for those windows on this front that remain, we'd still ideally be able to remove those.
If you could do anything,
If you
would.
guys so choose to give us that ability. If not,
And
we're
what
going to
is-
do our best to keep them. That's our plan.
And what is the reason for that? Because they're going to be in a living space with no other clear glass?
Correct. Because of the size of the church and the layouts that we're looking at, there's really no other glazing in these units. You know, it's almost harder to come ask to be able to punch new openings, right? So this is what they have, and so that front unit is going to be, you know, it's all going to be stained glass, and so living there is just, you know, it's going to be a kind of different experience, I think.
So staff did recommend continuance on this item, on the stained glass windows specifically, in part just because the applicant hadn't had the opportunity to fully detail the work that was going to go into both restoring what they do intend to keep and going back and replacing what's already gone, what's already damaged. So I think the next step with these is likely a more thorough survey of the existing window condition, what's there that's salvageable, that's repairable, where is the glass already gone, and we would need to go back with some other form of glass, and where you are having to install new material, what does that look like? And I think, you know, to the extent that work is repair or replacement in kind, some of that may well be administratively approvable, like making repairs to existing stained glass windows. And then where we're introducing new material, that would have to come back to the commission.
What is this property zoned as?
So this is a spud. We approved the spud to rezone this property, or we recommended approval of it late last year, beginning of this year.
It was last year at some point,
Yeah, within the last 12 months. So it is an SPUD that allows for the use of the church as housing, as multifamily housing. There was initially a proposal to allow other uses in the building, commercial, retail kinds of uses, but it ultimately landed on only multifamily. So
Ideally, we were hoping this could be a commercial use. We thought a commercial use would allow us to retain more of the existing and preserve the church more fully as its you know, original form, but we weren't approved on those.
That's where I struggle with it a little bit. I mean, it was approved basically only for residential, and to the applicant's point, it's pretty weird to have that much stained glass in your living room. I think
If it wasn't the front, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, like I said, there are ways. I mean, I would look into proposing perhaps, you know, something, but I don't want to approve the idea of just taking something down and putting it in the dumpster.
Yeah. Again, we're.
I mean, if you
it's
had a
clear to me
different-
you guys want to keep that.
If you
We're
had a
happy to keep
different approach on
So are you
that or-
suggesting reusing or doing like partial replacement with clear glass?
Maybe there's a, you know, maybe there's a compromise, maybe you, I don't like to make design, I'll just say from looking at previous historic preservation projects, maybe preserving part of something somewhere else at the same location, perhaps trading it out. I mean, you know,
if you guys are open to that, I think we could make interesting use of the stained glass on the interior.
I think that's
if
what-
that's an option.
Interior?
I mean, or, you know, if there's, you know, like I said, I really hate to make design, I'm just saying from looking at, if you would have said, well, the middle one is broken, and so we don't want to repair it, could we make that one clear? I mean, if you had the two side ones and the one was clear in the middle, maybe that is, you know, a compromise, to not make you repair the middle one or something. I don't know.
But you're just suggesting that he come back with a plan, not that we're going to design
Right.
that for him or tell him what we would suggest.
Right.
We just want to have something concrete.
I
that you
feel
can present.
uncomfortable just saying all of the front,
I do too.
particularly the front. The
Yeah.
other ones, I mean, I can see, maybe it's, just have a plan of maybe we're going to use these, and because this makes sense to do this, or we can switch this or something.
Can I even ask something just verbally? I know I'm not going to get an answer, but just to judge the commission's comfortability with ideas, is that an option here?
Sure.
I don't want to overstep what's allowed.
Might as well ask.
Would it be something that could be considered if, yes, we retained the stained glass, but we brought it inside? If it
We
was
don't
an
review
interior
anything
feature?
inside, so I mean, it wouldn't fall to us. So we wouldn't know that you did it. We wouldn't be able to make any,
It's an approach we've taken with Hpca before on projects,
Yeah.
just because they're so involved.
Right, and
Interior
they do so much
exterior.
I mean, that would be, this is not, or is or not a tax credit project? It's not.
No,
It's
no,
not. I mean, I would say, maybe that's the place to go to get some guidance, is to go to Hpca and just say, hey, here's some issues. Do you have something that you would approve? Because, I mean, we would be more likely to approve what Hpca approves for a tax credit project. I mean, maybe you didn't go to them because there were certain things you wanted to do and you didn't think they would approve them. I don't know. But we have the same guidelines they do.
Sure.
So, I mean, we really do. And so if when we approve it, it should be just like Hpca approving it, because we all follow the Secretary of Interior standards. to some
Because of the
degree.
adaptive reuse,
I
we
mean, our
didn't.
guidelines, but they're all pretty much the same.
Yeah. We didn't approach Hpca because of the adaptive reuse, and generally, on projects like this, it's just too difficult to thread the needle with them. so.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, I would consider a consult with them on just exterior. Maybe they have some ideas of what they've seen happen and what they've approved. I think if you brought us an idea that had been suggested, or they said, hey, that might be approved, then that might lead some,
Sure.
might be something to hang your hat on.
Happy to come back with a more concrete plan on the stained glass.
Let me check in with citizens. Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay, so there are lots of things that I think staff did recommend approval on. Do we want to go ahead and approve some of these items today and then potentially continue the discussion on the windows to another meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 22-00088. Items 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. I think that's all of them.
did we have discussion on item 6, the replace west and north doors?
Do you have some?
Do you have a question?
No, you just left it out, so I
Oh,
didn't.
sorry. No, it was not intentional.
Okay, so you
Sorry.
do want to motion to approve item 6?
Yes. So basically, items 1 through 13, not including number 2, with the specific findings and conditions in the staff report.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Corbin. All in favor, please vote. Did I get the right? No, I did not get the right.
Corbin, but it was Jordan.
Poore and Jordan.
My hand was there, she said.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. All in favor, please vote in prime gov.
Do you have a date that you would prefer continuance?
We'll be back at the next meeting if you allow us, for sure. Tuesday's good.
August 3rd.
I'll have something on Tuesday.
On the Tuesday's good on a plan for the windows, you
Yes.
think?
Well, it is for me. Is it for you? Do you want to go back out with us?
Well, I didn't know how quickly you could get that amount of information pulled together on the condition of the windows and how you plan to rehabilitate them, that in, the level of detail that I think they're going to expect to see.
Yeah.
But if you think you can do it by Tuesday, that's fine.
I'm definitely going to try. Yeah. It's going to be the plan.
The other option's September 7th, so,
I'd love it if you'd put me on the next one.
okay.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion.
Thanks
All
so
right,
much.
First motion was passed unanimously. Commissioner Poore,
Make a motion to continue item 2 of HPCA 22-00088 to the August 3rd meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Poor, seconded by Commissioner Coburn. Jeez. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Corbin. Wow.
We're doing okay.
I'll get it one of these days.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that continuance is passed unanimously as well. We'll move on to item number 9, HPCA 22-00089 at 124 Northwest 15th Street.
So this is in Heritage Hills East, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Mark Zitzow, Johnson & Associates for Barry Dodson for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct parking lot elective. And just wanted to clarify, you all have several letters from the Neighborhood Association and from neighbors and other residents at your seats, and that were distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. A couple of things I wanted to clarify. One, this property is zoned R4 as the base zoning. So a bed and breakfast is a conditional use in R4. That means if they meet the conditions, then the use is allowed. They don't have to rezone to have a bed and breakfast. They don't have to go to Planning Commission or Board of Adjustment. If they can check the boxes with development services, then the bed and breakfast is allowed. Those conditions are that has to do with like no cooking facilities in the rooms and how many rooms they can have, maximum length of stay for guests. The operator has to live on site and be on site at the time of rental, and then that they provide all parking as required on site for the property. So those are the conditions that they have to meet in order to operate the property as a bed and breakfast under the current zoning. Then the second thing that I wanted to clarify is that there have been several references to the shared drive along the west side of the property, and that is in fact a public alley. It's an open public alley, so it's not a shared driveway, it's a public right-of-way. So just to clarify those points, and then you all can discuss. But staff did recommend approval of the proposed parking. Some of the parking spaces are located in what is technically the side yard, but would be screened by fencing. So we did recommend approval of the application.
Great.
Katie, can I ask a question regarding the R4 guidelines?
Yes.
So that operates totally outside of any home share ordinances with HP districts?
Yes, so this
Okay.
is a true traditional bed and breakfast, not a home share.
Okay, and my other question is, if conditional use has to be allowed, if they have to meet these conditions to be a bed and breakfast, should they, this is just a first for me, so should they have already met those to be coming here with an application for parking? Like, should we, in theory, have the assurance that those are going to be met and that it's going to be acceptable and operational?
So the applicant's representative is here and can probably speak to what they've done to this point. One of those conditions is parking. So this is part of them being able to check off that they meet that condition.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Katie, I think, did a great summary on our behalf of the application. We had a meeting with Development Services. Katie was at that meeting. We went through the conditions that need to be met, and ultimately those are conditions that are reviewed at the building permit stage. So in order for us to go in for the building permit, we wanted the assurance that this parking lot, as designed, would be permitted. Katie mentioned really the main condition that we viewed in why we felt we could move forward with this application was that the operator had to live on site. That is the case, which is why we're not seeking a home sharing license. Bed and breakfast in the code is treated very differently than the quote Airbnb, right? So, there were several letters that were submitted by the neighbors and the neighborhood association. I'm happy to walk through any of those with our responses, but ultimately, I don't know if you all have the aerial.
They have it in their packet that's in PrimeGov.
Okay, so on our site plan, if you were to look at the aerial, really our parking lot configuration is a minimal increase in hard surface area, and we're asking for almost an identical situation, except better with screening, than the apartments have to our west. Their backyard is entirely paved. So it was a little bit odd that there be a protest letter in our application when we actually have more open space in our backyard. I have talked with, his name is Kent, who is with the, if I mispronounce this, I apologize, the psoriasis condos. Did I get that right?
I believe it's cirrhosis, as in the cirrhosis of the liver.
Okay, there we go. So I spoke with him. He's out of town. I don't know if he has a representative here. We will happily meet with him when he gets back into town. We noted that. I think some of the letter, and based on our discussion, was written prior to seeing the site plan. So our parking is going to be screened. We're going to work with staff. There will be a gate that's put in place to accomplish that screening. But again, between the house, the garage, the existing fences, really the only spot that parking would be visible is immediately adjacent to a parking lot that's operated by those 3 buildings. So with that, we would ask for your approval, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Questions from commissioners?
I would like to just hear from neighbor.
Perfect. Can you come up and state your name and address for the record, and we'll try and answer any questions we can.
Hello, my name is Paul Barcel. I own one of the apartments that's just to the west of this. Kent contacted me over 4th of July weekend, so I have not seen the site plan. I saw the packet that he sent in. I sent that in to Katie and I think Angela earlier today, just saying, hey, I had the same concerns. Kind of to your point, what I don't understand and what is the most concerning to me is that dumpster in this picture right here. There has to be some way for that to be accessed by the vehicle that takes it away. It's not accessible from the other side on the west, so I don't know where the gate's going to be, and I don't know if there's anything obstructing it. So my concern is just we can't have that dumpster that you see in this picture here. It has to be accessed from this view right here, so it would be accessed from the north, has to go down that alley and get that. The other secondary concern would just be how traffic can flow through this common way. It's very challenging for those 2 apartment buildings. So I own the Lloyd, which is the southern one, and the Buck staff is just north of me. This is a common way to get in and out of those spaces. So we don't have any plan for how or where we will put that dumpster or how it would be disposed of. So that's where I'm concerned, and again, I don't have all the details of how that's being worked out, but if that's obstructed, I'm highly concerned.
Sir? I'm just looking, I haven't driven over there. I'm looking at the drawing, and all of the parking spaces, and to the developer, all of the spaces are on your land. Thank you. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Would you just respond to that and explain the dumpster thing before we go on for your side? Because I'm looking at this, and it looks like there's an alley that everybody has access to. Where is the dumpster? Is the dumpster in the private?
It is in the public alley, so I spoke with Kent. We're happy to have a conversation. We're happy to help facilitate sliding that dumpster back to accommodate the access to our property. But ultimately, the dumpster is an illegally placed dumpster in a public alley. That's not screened. That
Right.
likely would not be approved if someone came forth with an application. So
That was kind of my question. I mean, to look on it, I mean, dumpsters are supposed to be on the person's property, but accessible from a street or alley. And so I guess I'm asking, is your dumpster on your property?
It's the Buck staff's dumpster, and we share it. So I don't know what his plot lines are. I would just say it's not accessible from the west. So there's a very, very small alleyway. Let's see. A very small alleyway. Let's see.
that's the dumpsters. This is the alley.
Okay. So the only way, well, the other stuff over here, basically you'd have to come down the side of the Lloyd, which I own. It's a very, very narrow driveway, and I don't even know how you would be able to make a turn with the vehicle that's needed to dump that dumpster. So
What is your solution to that?
Well, I think our solution is, again, we're willing to slide it further to the south and it remain in the alley. Ultimately, it's not on our property. It's within a public alley. So we'll do whatever we can to help facilitate so they still have adequate trash pickup. We just do not want any improvements or enclosure of a dumpster tied to our project since it's not our dumpster.
Right.
And I can show, if you allow me to hand this to you, I can show you where the dumpster is and that it's
I
in
mean,
the
I don't,
alley.
I understand, but if the dumpster, I mean, to me, dumpsters should be on the property of the owner or in a shared parking lot of the, I mean, that's my experience. I've had lots of dumpsters. And they're always on the, you know, if it's a shared situation, then it's in the parking lot shared by everybody. But if it's just belongs to one property, must be on their property, and then allow for the truck, the pickup truck, to come up and down the public alley or street to pick it up.
I guess my position on this is that the applicant is doing everything that they need to appropriately. It's a matter of what I would, this is a really bad term, but an illegally placed dumpster that is at issue here. And I guess I think the dumpster should be moved and the project should be approved.
Well, I think there are some other, y'all know I love my neighborhood and public comments. I really like to read those. There are some other considerations that are being brought forward. And one question I have is, have you, to the applicant, have you gone to this is technically Heritage Hills HP, even though it's R4, have you gone to the Heritage Hills HP group to discuss possible solutions to some of their concerns?
We have not. I mean, when you think about the application, it's adding less than 5% lot coverage to really the rear yard.
Yeah,
So-
no, it's not, and you know, it's not always about what is being asked for, but it's just, I think that that's often a really good step to take when there is some opposition for, I mean, it sounds like there's opposition from neighboring property owners, there's opposition from the neighborhood association. So I'm just wondering if all parties might be willing to sit down with the Heritage Hills HP and come up with something that addresses not only the dumpster, I mean, in terms of the dumpster, I don't know if it's illegal, but, you know, in these historic neighborhoods, we often have situations like that where there's an encroachment, somebody's, you know, their garage is over the easement, whatever, and we've just all got to find a way to make it work where that nobody is too inconvenienced by the addition of a parking lot or a bed and breakfast or anything else. So my recommendation, I don't personally feel that I could vote to approve this without coming to, I would like to see real plans for, at a minimum, where that dumpster is going to be and how access is going to be provided for everybody else who needs to use it.
I mean, it's not their dumpster.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
I mean,
it's-
how can he propose
The
where-
access, though.
The access
correct?
is the alley, and that belongs to everybody. It
So
doesn't
how is
belong
the-
to a dumpster. They're saying that the dumpster is now in the alley, part of it.
So how is the alley, I guess, impacted?
And the dumpster has to be out of the alley. I mean, and he doesn't really have anything to do with that dumpster. It's not his. I mean, he you know, I understand that unfortunately, it's kind of a situation where people are used to having it in a certain place, and it's been convenient, but now, you know, the new people want to, you know, do something that's going to need to have the alleyway completely open. Is that correct?
That is correct. It is not our dumpster. We do not envision sharing the dumpster.
Okay.
We are not opposed to helping push that dumpster back. It doesn't solve the fact that there's a dumpster in a public alley. We just need it pushed further back so we can properly access our parking lot, which all of our parking spaces are entirely outside of the alley.
So you're not actually doing anything to any alley access, to any, you just need access to be through and clean?
Correct.
I guess one question. I have a question. So again, did not get to read your proposals. The concern in the way Kent described it was that there would be some kind of gate right here obstructing the alley. Is that the case or not?
So we will be going back to staff with a gate for the parking lot, but the gate will be moving north and south, so we wouldn't be allowed to have a gate that opened out into a public alley. That would be a traffic hazard. So from our view,
That's just like a fence.
correct.
I mean, if you didn't have a gate, you could have a fence.
I mean, my primary concern is if we're able to like push it south, trying to get away. If we're able to push it south, then we're fine. But what's happening is if there is an obstruction, the way that this is, it's out there, it is so hard for a truck to turn into that alley. That's why it got pushed out there. And it's been there for years. So I would say if possible to do a continuation where Kent, myself can meet with him and kind of try and figure out a solution. But right now, if this is approved and we have to move that dumpster, it creates a big problem for two properties.
So based on the application that's before you, I think we're asking for approval today. I'll happily commit, and I've already talked to Kent, to meet with him to work out a dumpster solution, but understanding that whatever happens with the dumpster, it is outside of this application. I don't want to design their property. I think there's a way that the dumpster could absolutely be on their property. However, that does eliminate some of their parking, and that's what they're concerned about, which is likely why the dumpster ended up in a public alley to begin with.
Okay. I totally misunderstood that, so that's on me. I do have a question about some of the neighborhood comments that states this is a shared driveway that was designed for residential use. You know, it's one thing to allow your neighbor to use your driveway, but quite another for a hotel establishment to do this. I think that's something that, if that's a big concern, I think that would be something worth talking to the neighborhood about.
Are you accessing a shared driveway?
No, I think that's the confusion. What they're calling a shared driveway is a publicly platted alley.
Okay, so the shared driveway is the alley.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry.
So everybody should have access to it regardless.
Right, no, sorry. It's
privately-
alley in the application and it's driveway in the comments, and so.
Yeah. So it looks like we've got a couple citizens that wish to speak as well. Mr. Ice, do you want to come up here and visit? If you don't mind, give us 1 second. We're going to let him speak, and then we'll call you up in a second, too.
Randy Ice, 119 Northwest 19th Street with the Heritage Hills Neighbor Association. You have our letter. There is some confusion. This is a public alley, not a shared driveway. The difficulty we have is there is no agreement to maintain this, and the city's not been maintaining it. All 4 of these property owners are utilizing this space, and nobody fixes it. All right, and that's part of the trouble we're getting into in this situation. Really, all 4 of them need to come together and come up with some sort of maintenance agreement and perhaps a place to empty the trash. I'm not sure, that's another issue. We're also very concerned about lot coverage. This applicant goes up to 67%. We have guidelines that say that's too high. Drainage is a problem. All these buildings have basements, or virtually all of them. There's going to be significant development, as this commission knows, just to the south of this on the north side of 14th Street. They're proposing a child care center that will hold roughly 400 children and 50 staff, okay? That's a lot of water coming off that property, both into the sanitary sewer, which was designed for residential single-family houses and a handful of apartments. It's also a lot of water coming off for storm sewers and into basements. So we're very concerned about all of this happening at the same time. I expect that the child care center to come before you next month, all right? And these are major developments right in the same proximity, and these buildings are very close together. I'll grant you, we would have never wanted to see an apartment pave every square inch of their property, but the apartment buildings and the condominiums have already done that. You've heard from the president of the condo association, Mr. Fisher. He's very much opposed to this. I assume he represents all of the condo owners in the Cirrhosis Club condominiums. You've heard from neighboring apartment buildings that are concerned. I think this needs to have some additional work. I suggest they meet with the neighborhood. I suggest they also all meet together and work out some sort of way to maintain anything they do, because the city is not in the business of going out and fixing these alleyways, and you all know that. It's a problem wherever they exist. They get giant potholes, and nobody wants to fix it. They always say, it's your fault, because you brought a dumpster in here, or you brought a garbage truck in here, or you brought a hotel in here, okay? We've got to have some planning when it comes down to these sorts of developments.
I tend to agree with that. Randy, did you sign in? And sir, as you're coming up, if you don't mind, state your name and address for the record at the podium, and then sign in as well.
My name's Tom Miller, and I'm a third owner of the condos that they're on the west side of the alley. And you're absolutely right, that is an alley. It's always been an alley. And the dumpster has always been a problem since I've owned that property. 2004 is when we bought it. You can see the cracks in the concrete. They jump the curb with those big old trucks. It's just in a bad location, any way you want to look at it. It's not their dumpster, I realize that, they don't use it. Well, the previous owner did dump some stuff in it, still laying around it. Also, the one concern I've got, in that picture right there where that white car is, the owner previous to this had a truck parked there, and it rolled back and destroyed my garage door, the middle one on the 3-car garage there. Totally destroyed it, and then he just drove off. So we were out $1,000 to have that fixed on our own, and I would want to make sure that we didn't have that kind of a potential problem with parking over there, like in a different angle. I agree with the other gentleman. We do need to get together and work out something with the alley. I've worked with that for years. I used to talk with the city engineer, and they'd come out and would patch it. And the truck just totally destroyed the concrete. And I've had them out there, and they say, well, it was some other truck, it wasn't our truck, and that's the way that goes. So at least we've never got any help with it. And I don't know, normally when they develop a property, don't they usually look at the streets around it and have the person developing it make some improvements? You see it quite often. Whether that's possible or not now, I don't know. But it certainly is a major problem for all of us. And that's why Kent sent the letters in, and I'm representing him today since he was out of town. And it's not that we want to stop anything, but we just want to make sure what we do is safe, and we'll work with everybody.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Do y'all have any questions for the citizens, or any more for the applicant?
How many rooms are proposed for the bed and breakfast? I guess I'm just trying to get a picture on like how many cars are going to actually be coming in and out.
I have a similar question. How many parking spots are we looking at here? I can't seem to find that on any of the attachments.
I can't either.
Sure. So, I mean, the number of rooms is still somewhat in flux. I think we're looking somewhere between 9 and 12, and then there will be where the operator will live on site. And I believe we're proposing 9 parking spaces.
Okay.
I'm trying to flip to the site plan here, but again, I'm happy to respond to some of the comments. Private citizens cannot go in and repair public alleys and public streets. It's not permitted. We would be happy to help coordinate a meeting with our client and our adjacent neighbors with Public Works to see if there's unlisted bond funds, if there's a financing source that this could be repaired. But ultimately, this is a piece of city infrastructure that it's the city's responsibility to maintain. My guess is there will be much more wear and tear from large trash trucks coming up and down this than single occupancy vehicles.
I have a question on the lot. Is this on? On the lot coverage, Katie? On the lot coverage? No,
Sorry, yes.
We go back and forth. Now, is that a requirement of this, or it's something that we refer to based off
Well,
current?
this is R4, so I think it can be completely covered, correct?
Right, R4 allows 100% lot coverage. HP guidelines talk about not substantially altering the built to open space ratio, and they are increasing the lot coverage by approximately 5%.
And this is technically an overlay?
This is in the HL overlay, right,
Okay.
with the R4 base zoning. And it is showing 9 parking spaces. My understanding from looking at the requirements for bed and breakfast is that you are required to have 2 parking spaces for the operator, the dwelling on site, and then 1 per room. But I just looked that up quickly this afternoon because I realized I didn't know what the requirement was, so that might not be accurate.
That does sound correct. The one thing that the zoning code does allow for is parking reduction. So if we ended up with 12 rooms that could be rented, our parking requirement would go up, but the code allows for a 25% reduction if we install additional landscaping, a bike rack, and I understand all of that would have to come back to HP. But the code does allow that. So the 9 spaces, even if we maxed out the number of rooms that could fit in the home, we still meet the code of the parking.
So where would you anticipate people, if you have 12 rooms and you've got the owner on site and 9 parking spaces, where would you anticipate people parking outside of these 9 spaces?
Well, outside of the 9 spaces that would be required, it would be like any other use for any other user they would find an alternative place to park. That could be street parking, it could be nearby parking lots, but the owner is providing the required number of parking spaces.
No, I understand that, but thinking through the neighborhood's concerns, you know, the obvious answer is that people are going to be parking in front of other people's homes, which is, you know, we live in a city and it's fairly urban right there, and I get it, but I think that's part of the concern is a lot of concrete, you know, taking up all available concrete, maybe still not having enough parking. There's a lot of reference to traffic congestion. I mean, it sounds like everything meets all requirements for approval. I just personally like to see everybody leave this feeling like they've come to some sort of reasonable solution for their concerns.
Yeah, and again, we are more than willing to sit down and talk with everyone. I think ultimately, though, the number of parking spaces provided isn't what's before the commission. And so whether we had 9, we had 10, we went down to 8, ultimately the number of bedrooms that are going to be built is going to be permitted based on the number of spots that we have. And it's a minimal increase in paved area. The vast majority is what we're going to be utilizing exists today.
When you say it's 5%, what is already there?
So I don't know if you could pull this up. I'd be happy to point it out. I mean, there's a little bit of additional paving that's going in the side yard toward the rear of the home, and then 2 parking pads that are going to go next to the garage. I can circle it on this and pass it around. The parking lots.
Is that the site plan, Mark?
So when you say
Yeah.
5%, you're saying that 5% increases 5% of the total lot coverage?
That's
the
correct.
total lot?
Total lot, yes. So because of the configuration, how the previous owners were accessing the property, there was a picture where you saw a car kind of in diagonally, which is probably a less safe situation in terms of backing out into a public alley. There are just some odd corners that are cut out of the lot where I think it's really dirt exists that we'll just kind of be filling in and squaring off. And then we're adding a couple parking pads. See, that's a good angle. So on the other side of that fence, a portion of paving exists, but we're really going to fill it in to square it up to match the site plan. And then there still will be open space on the southeast corner of the lot that is not being paved. So there still will be open space. And then, of course, there's a expansive front lawn and significant side yards that are being maintained.
I mean, I'm just looking at the site plan. I mean, there is a great deal of open space.
They're only adding 5% to their current, to the current pad anyways. It feels very, to me, it feels like it's not a very dramatic change. I feel like they've done everything that they needed to do in order to get this project to this point, and the only thing that's holding it up is, in my opinion, a dumpster, which I don't feel really has many rights in this scenario.
Yeah, I think I agree about the dumpster. So removing the dumpster, Randy, what do you view as the main concern, or anybody who spoke on behalf of the public, what is the main concern outside of that dumpster?
Well, they have to have access to it. They can't get in from Robinson. The driveways are too narrow for the trucks. They
Can't
have
get
to come
in for
to the dumpster, to empty the dumpster.
Disregarding the dumpster entirely.
Yeah, well, that's their big problem, is they've got to have the dumpster. Okay, and I don't know, I don't want to get into where exactly it needs to be. It has to be somewhere, and that's for 2 buildings. We've got over 24 units on those lots, those 3 lots there, okay? There's already not sufficient parking for the 24 units. They are parking on the street on Robinson and 15th Street. Okay, the streets are completely full. We can't have any more cars on the streets over there. At night, you can't, there's just no place to put your car, and they end up across the street in the St. Luke's parking lot. Okay, and now St. Luke's is adding a major child care center, and their parking lot's going to be used for their workers over there. So you've got even more congestion going in. I will remind the commission that just a few years ago, you turned down a pool house at this house. They wanted to have a pool house in addition to the pool, okay? Because, and I was at the meeting, okay? As I recall, it was because there was too much lot coverage with that pool house. Now, there's some debate over that. Somebody said, well, it was too close to the garage, okay? And that may have been the case as well, but this parking is going to be too close to the garage too. Now, if the commission turned down something, 8 years ago? Now, I know most of you weren't here, I live here, all right? But it seems like there should be consistency across time, especially with the same piece of property when we're covering the same issues of lot coverage, all right? It's big.
If they can put, it's big, so, I mean, is it, and it's zoned for multifamily. but
It's always been single
It's always
family.
been single, but it could be, so it could be divided into four places and still, I mean, that would be an option for somebody to come in and do it as a fourplex.
We would resist that as well, just because historically it's always been a single-family home, a very
Right, but-
large home, 4 levels.
But it would be allowed if the exterior was, remain, the same. I'm saying, it's a large property, it's gonna attract a lot of it could, with other uses, it could also attract a lot of cars.
Yes, and we actually prohibited, we blocked the usage. They wanted to turn it into an office building and a doctor's office. We had 2 of those come up in the last 20 years for this, and the HP Commission, as well as zoning, refused to rezone it commercial or office.
Right, but we're not rezoning it, yes,
That's correct. It is already zoned. The use is permitted as long as we meet the conditions. So we're not here asking for that. We're really here asking for really the design of a parking lot that's fully on our property. And I'll reiterate, we are more than willing to help push the dumpster further south in the alley so that they continue to have access to it. What we want to be sure is if we do that, we don't get a citation that says, you've illegally put a dumpster in the alley and it holds up our CO because we have nothing to do with that dumpster.
But this is about drainage as well.
And drainage, all of that will be in a building permit. We'll have to submit a set of plans. That'll all be reviewed. So all of the water, is in the staff report notes. It's going to go away from the structures. It'll make it out to the street in the same way it does today.
So for me, I feel like there's quite a bit of burden being put on this application based off adjacent properties and things that they need that may not meet current guidelines. And I don't think that's fair. I think that a bed and breakfast actually, I know when I travel, I don't rent a car. I find a place in an urban location, and I like to stay in the heart of where, a neighborhood is, and I walk and I Uber. And so I think this is a use that is likely to maybe have the least amount of cars possible, knowing that it's a, kind of a short-term rental situation with people coming in likely to visit or, so I feel like there's a lot more other uses that could cause more cars, to be needed in this. So for me, I'm fine with this application. It's not anything significant. I do think you guys should still have a conversation and work with the group together and figure out, that the alley and, but I don't think that it's fair to cause that burden on this application.
Do you care to make a motion?
I would love to make a motion.
I actually have one more question. Does this have to, since it's already zoned R4, does this have to come back to HP for them to do any other work on the interior of that house to convert it?
No, so they can do anything to the interior that they like, really at any time, just like any homeowner can. So they can do the work to the interior, and that won't come back to the HP Commission. Things that will come back would be any changes to the exterior, which they don't anticipate much from our previous conversations, possibly some exterior lighting, if there's a sign, or I know we've talked with the owner about they wanted to get a National Register plaque on the house because it is part of the National Register district. So exterior work would come back to the commission, but work to the interior for any kind of conversion, whether that was for the bed and breakfast or whether that was to some other use that's allowed by their zoning, wouldn't come back to HP for review.
Thanks.
So with that, I will make a motion to approve HPCA 220089, item 1 with the conditions and unique circumstances in the staff report.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Corbin. All in favor, please vote in Prime Gov. Okay, that was approved unanimously with conditions.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, and here's your documentation.
Do I have it?
I was going to pass it back down that way. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7. We've got a Board of Adjustment item, BOA 15068 at 127 Northwest 16th Street.
This is located in Heritage Hills East, Ward 2. That's actually Ward 6, sorry guys. Consideration and possible action on application by Jeremy Daltrey for Certificate of Appropriateness. Sorry, this is for recommendation. We goofed on some of our wording here. For recommendation to Board of Adjustment regarding home sharing elective. So this is, as we've done several times here recently, a request for recommendation to Board of Adjustment on home sharing. I think the last one that we had, I wasn't at the meeting, and I wanted to clarify in a little more detail the distinction between home sharing when it's in a HP district versus HL. The HP district is the base zoning, which governs the uses for properties and includes requirements specifically for home sharing in an HP district, that the owner, that it be the operator's primary residence and that they be on site at the time of rental. For an HL district, those requirements do not apply. It's a different zoning designation. They have a base zoning district where the regulations for uses are addressed. So they deal with home sharing in an HL area just like anywhere else in the city. There is a requirement that anything that has to go to Board of Adjustment in a historic district goes to HP Commission for a recommendation. So that's why these come to you for review. But in an HL district, that provision that it be the primary residence and that they be on site is not applicable. So,
are you the applicant?
I am.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Jeremy Delatry, and address is 127 Northwest 16th.
Anything you want the commission to know today?
No.
Do we have questions for the applicant?
I do. It lists an address at 5217 Northwest 109th Street in the application as your address.
Yeah, so my sister currently lives there, which is she is part owner. My physical address is 5217 Northwest 109th.
So you don't live, I mean, it says, so you are not the current occupant of 127 Northwest 16th Street?
No, my sister is, yeah.
So, and she is one of the owners?
Mm-hmm, correct.
And she will she will not stay living there?
No.
But in this particular residence, I don't believe that that's a requirement because it's HL, not HP.
This is HL as well.
So in my opinion, the applicant meets all of the requirements. I don't know how we could not approve it from my own perspective, but that's just me. Obviously, we want to hear from the neighbors and the neighborhood association, but if there's other questions from the commissioners, I want to make sure we can ask that of the applicant at this time. Okay. Yes.
Sorry, actually, are there any neighbors who are going to talk? Maybe I should save my questions. Okay.
Come on up. And name and address for the record.
Randy Ice, 119 Northwest 19th Street. To be perfectly frank with you, we believed that the HL had the same restrictions as HP under the home sharing ordinance. We learned in the last couple days this was not the case. I checked with the other HP neighborhood presidents I could reach. They also were under the impression HL and HP had the same home sharing requirements. So very clearly, there has been a miscommunication from City Council, where this law was passed, between the heads of the HP neighborhoods.
Sure.
And we are concerned about that. We are going to discuss what to do about that and perhaps go to City Council and ask for a revision to the ordinance because we think this was an oversight. We believe that HL should also be covered with the same requirement that HP has for the owner to be present when a home sharing situation occurs. On this particular block, the reason it's HL is because they're an apartment building on the south side. The north side of this block is, with one exception, primarily small dwellings. Okay, this in particular was a Habitat for Humanity house. It is very heavy on bedrooms given the size of the house. It was actually donated by neighborhood residents to Habitat to provide affordable housing, and obviously this is not what was intended when the property was given free of charge to the charity. And the charity did not put restrictive covenants on it, and so this is what's happened, okay? And as the neighbor told me, no good deed goes unpunished, okay? And now they believe this will be a detriment to the neighborhood, and that's why I'm down here, because we've got an unhappy person who thought they were doing the right thing, and now they feel like this has been thrown back in their face. I don't know what can be said. I didn't understand the ordinance did not require owner occupancy. The neighborhood is opposed to this. I want to be very clear about that, and we would be opposed to any others in the HL district. But it doesn't sound like you have much discretion in this matter. So I just wanted to make our position clear.
Perfect. Thank you.
Katie,
Ma'am, did
could
you want to?
Could you clear up, the commissioners, I think, are confused too. Could you give a little clarification on why this is that instead of HP? What happened here?
So the first historic preservation zoning that the city adopted is HP, and that's what most of our single-family residential neighborhoods are. So Heritage Hills, Mesta Park, Putnam Heights, Crown Heights, Edgemere are all HP. That's their base zoning. It's the only zoning that they have. So it includes the design review component, but it also includes what uses are allowed in that district. It's where you would have things about setbacks, and it has regulations for signs and all of that, all wrapped up in HP. Later, the city adopted the historic landmark overlay that could be used on a variety of different property types. So we can use the overlay on any property regardless of what the base zoning is and regardless of what the use is. That's why we can have a historic landmark that is a church, that is a cemetery, that is an apartment building, that is the milk bottle grocery building at 23rd and Classen. We can use the overlay on anything because the overlay doesn't address use. So when they did the home sharing ordinance, they were able to address home sharing specific to HP because HP addresses uses. They didn't do that with the HL overlay because HL overlay doesn't address use. Now, could they have put something in the HL overlay specific to certain base zoning districts and certain uses? I think that's probably doable, but that wasn't something that was pursued. So for the HL properties, and then to go back, so we've used HL on these individual structures. We've also used HL on neighborhoods that have a mix of uses. So Jefferson Park, Paseo, and Heritage Hills East, because they have a mixture of single family and multifamily and some commercial sprinkled in. Those all have the HL overlay because they have a variety of different base zonings.
So is this how that became Heritage Hills East? I always thought, so are you saying that Heritage Hills East got the HL?
Heritage Hills East is extra special because the southern half is HL and the northern half is HP. And that's before my time. I don't know what the thought process was with that, but that's how that one was done.
I mean, I'll just say from personal experience that sometimes just to clear it up for people in the past, sometimes it's actually an action of the neighborhood because sometimes they consider certain areas better, and so they go with the HP, and then they go, well, those areas, they're not all single family, they're this, they're that, they can just have the HL. Or people protest, maybe they do the HL, but I mean, so just I just was wondering, I thought, well, maybe, I don't know how that happened, the separation of those two, but
yeah.
I understand.
When you do HP, and we have this all over, especially in Mesta Park, when you have the HP base zoning on a property that is not actually a single family home, then that property is legally non-conforming, which can create all sorts of issues when someone goes to redevelop that property that has maybe been a duplex or a fourplex for 100 years, but it's actually not legal. There's issues with that. So there's good reason for the two different types.
Katie, are these overlay districts something that will be impacted by the city's proposed new zoning, that their zoning plan that they're looking at?
So I do think that with the code update, we'll look at the two different types, the overlay and the base zone. We haven't gotten there yet, but they'll definitely look carefully at how those are functioning.
I feel extremely I agree that, like, reading this in black and white, I don't know that there is a way to not approve things like this, reading into the city's current codes, but we all know that when you're over there, it exists as one neighborhood, and when you're looking at putting 6 adults in a home this size, and it's possibly 6 cars, and then it's parking for the bed and breakfast, and it's, I mean, you know, I live there, and it is on some streets really difficult to get through at night. And I think with everything we pass that suddenly goes from your standard 2 cars to 6 cars, 9 cars, 13 cars, it very much changes the historic dynamic of it for me to go on blocks like that where it's just solid car congestion. And I think this overlay is really, really tricky. And I think even if we approve this, it's something that like certainly needs to be pursued and clarified.
So I do think that the parking and the congestion are things that are specifically under the purview of Board of Adjustment when they review the special exceptions. And I think that's something the commission can certainly include in your recommendation, that perhaps, you know, they're not proposing, well, first and foremost, it's not a historic structure anyway. I was going to say it's not impacting the historic structure, but it's not even a historic home. But I think you can identify concerns about the number of people on site, the parking, the congestion as part of your recommendation to Board of Adjustment.
So the other thing too is this is very similar to the one that we actually denied not too long ago and was appealed. And I mean, so there's really, in my opinion, no reason to deny it. It's going to be appealed and when. Plus, I think the applicant has done everything that he needs to by the letter of the law to say that this should be approved. So, but we do have a concern.
I think I promised Taylor last time I wouldn't talk anymore.
We need your name and address
I
for
just
the
want to
record.
give some history. Heritage
Name and
Hills.
address for the record, I'm sorry.
What?
Name and address for the record, please.
Anyway, I've lived in Heritage Hills 43 years, and when I came, it was crime-ridden, not as much as some people thought. But I had daughters that went to school a little bit further north, and her parents wouldn't let their friends come to our neighborhoods. And when Heritage Hills was founded, Heritage Hills East, it was considered by our board of directors to take the 100 block in then. They felt, just like they didn't take Mesta Park at the time, because they had enough to handle with just trying to handle, 275 houses in Heritage Hills and protect those. But then we worked with Mesta Park, Mary Jo would remember that, I think, and we worked with all the other neighborhoods to get them in HP. And I think Heritage Hills, actually, we had a vote of our populace about 5-6 years ago to actually make Heritage Hills East, the 100 block, a part of Heritage Hills. Legally, it is Heritage Hills. We're putting up our signposts, we put up our street lights, we've done all of that. And so I do think that the confusion is that we feel they're HP, and then yet there's this law that says they're HL. And I don't know how or what we do, but I think that certainly the citizens, and I know people like Wilson School, of course, our little neighborhood school has so many kids from Heritage Hills East, Heritage Hills, and Mesta Park. And the people in those neighborhoods don't see a distinction. It's all HP. So that's all I wanted to say, that I think that's the history, and that's why some of us feel pretty passionate about not having Heritage Hills East be something we're not, that we don't feel they are. So.
Can you state your name and address and sign in over here too, please? Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to recommend approval of BOA 15068.
It's a recommendation. So it's
So, motion to recommend
to recommend.
approval?
To recommend to the Board of Adjustment your thoughts about the application.
Okay, so I make a motion to recommend.
A motion to recommend whichever way you're recommending to approve or not to approve.
Approval of BOA 15068. Would encourage them to look into parking and other issues of congestion in the area.
Me?
No, the BOA, the Board of Adjustment when they,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry.
Do we even need a second on that?
Yes,
Okay.
because it's your recommendation.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, second by Commissioner Meacham. All in favor, please vote. Did everybody hit the green button?
What if I
No.
saw it?
Did everybody hit A button?
Where is it? No, I'm always doing it.
While you're looking for your
Where's my live
button,
meeting?
Yeah.
I want you to know that the Board of Adjustment monitors how many structures are home shares in various areas. They have a little dot map that shows all of that, so just so that you know,
That's good to know.
they're monitoring it.
And they
Okay.
do take that seriously. I've heard them on a number of occasions talk about whether a certain area was getting oversaturated, so.
Okay, well, the approval was passed with a vote of 4-2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like we've got item number 8, administrative approvals. Looks like there were 14 of those. We had one withdrawal, and anything else from City Council's perspective, Board of Adjustment, Planning Commission, or the Municipal Counselor's Office? Nothing. Excellent. Okay, our next meeting date, next regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, August 3rd at 2 p.m. At the Municipal Building, City Council Chambers. New applications for this meeting were received July 5th. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, July 12th. The next regularly scheduled commission workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, September 14th from 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main Street. Any other items from commissioners that we want to share today? Nothing? Any citizens that wish to be heard? There is nobody in the room. Our meeting is adjourned at 4:01.